Welcome everybody, my name is Shwadi and this is my Frost ONI Hunter build. This build revolves around the Mask of Fealty, freezing everything and getting ignitions off. It's kind of a fire and ice build, but mainly ice for this one. Let's get into the armor for the build. As stated before, this build revolves around the Mask of Fealty. This makes it so Withering Blade hits and bounces, creates a small stasis crystal, and refund a portion of melee energy. Using Withering Blade to shatter crystals or frozen targets releases a spread of Withering Blades. So they go all over the place with this. It's perfect. So what I have on this is Powerful Friends just because I had one leftover energy slot. Hands On just to get more super energy on melee kills because this is melee focused. And Thermodynamic Siphon so that our solar and stasis final blows can give us orbs of power. On our gauntlets, I have a melee font just to get a little bit more melee stat. Impact Induction just to get more grenade cooldown when we hit things with our powered melees. And Focusing Strike just to get class ability back when we hit with our powered melees also. On the chest armor, I have a solar ammo generation just to boost the ammo generation for the solar weapons we'll be using on this build, and then just resistance mods after that. It's up to you how you want to run that though. On the boots, I have a weapons font just to boost the weapon stat for us. Absolution to reduce all ability cooldowns whenever we pick up an orb of power. And Better Already so that our health begins to regenerate immediately after picking up the orb power. We'll be making a lot of orbs with this build as well. On our class armor, I have Powerful Attraction to pick up those orbs. Reaper, so that after we use our class ability, we can get an orb of power after the next final blow. And Distribution, so that all ability cooldowns can be reduced whenever we use that class ability near targets, which will happen often. For the stat distribution, I recommend most of your stats going into melee just because this is a melee focused build. Apart from just wanting to get our melee back quickly, we also want even more damage for that. After that, it's pretty much up in the air, but I went with more weapon stat just to get more damage. And then I would say Grenade is also a good one to go into. For our weapons, it's pretty much also up in the air, but I would obviously recommend Stasis and Solar weapons. On the Stasis weapon, I would even more so recommend Rime Steel on it just to get even more frost armor, but it's not necessary for the build. It's just another added survivability method. Headstone's also great for making a little bit more stasis crystals out there that you can hit with your Withering Blades, but also not necessary. I'm using an Ariana's Vow. This one's great just because it gives us ignitions whenever we pierce a champion's barrier, or any enemy that has a solar barrier or solar shield on. So this kind of just adds to the whole ignitions going off every now and then whenever you have that ability. Especially in higher level content, there's always a lot of barrier champions everywhere. So ignitions will really be going off left and right. You'll be getting a lot of ice and a lot of ignitions. The gun that would go perfect with this build is the Icebreaker, but sadly I don't have it. I know, crazy. I'll get it one day and then I'll put it on. That'll just boost this build even more. But yeah, if you have Icebreaker, definitely put that on as your special and just pop off with all the ignitions against all the frozen targets. For now, my Ariana's Vow will do. And then the heavy, again, like I said, it could be solar or stasis, completely up to you. I was using this Outrageous Fortune that has incandescent and chain reaction, so this really helps with like ignitions and explosions going off on the battlefield, especially with all the ice that's also going to be there. For our subclass, I went with Prismatic, and our super, it's basically up to you, but I always go between the Shadow Shot and Silence and Squall. For our abilities, we definitely want Gambler's Dodge just to get our melee back every time we dodge or use our class ability. Of course, we're using Withering Blade. And then for the grenade, it's also up to you, but I recommend Unravel just because it also deals melee damage and it's just a great grenade in general. On our aspects, I have Ascension, so that can basically replace our dodge and we can just use the class ability energy, jolting targets and then amplifying us. So that'll also get us our melee back because of Gambler's Dodge. And then Gunpowder Gamble, which will also help with the ignitions going off. And you'll get this pretty much constantly with this build. For our fragments, I have Facet of Command, so that every time we freeze or suppress a target, it'll reload our weapons and give it some boosts. And then every time we defeat frozen or suppressed targets, it'll create stasis shards and void breaches. I have Facet of Balance. Rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants melee. Rapidly defeating targets with darkness grants grenade energy. Great for synergy and ability spam. I have Facet of Ruin so that our shatters and our solar ignitions will increase with size and damage. Facet of Protection, so that we'll get a little bit more damage resistance every time we're surrounded by combatants. Facet of Dawn, so that every time we hit things with our Withering Blades, we'll be radiant, and if we kill them, we'll also make our allies radiant. For our artifacts, of course, we're leaning more towards the stasis-centered mods. We got one with Frost, so while Frost armor is active, stasis weapons gain increased reload and stability, and our stasis swords will also gain increased guard resistance. We have Fever and Chill, so that rapid precision hits with solar weapons will grant radiant, rapid precision hits with stasis will grant frost armor. We have Frost Renewal, so every time we have frost armor, taking critical damage will release a burst that freezes nearby combatants and grants frost armor. We have Refresh Threads, just so that picking up an elemental pickup, which will happen often with the stasis shards and void breaches, it'll give us energy to our least charged ability. We have Cauterized Darkness, so stasis or strand debuff non-boss combatants take increased solar damage from all sources. This is great because we're going to be slowing and freezing a lot of combatants, so every time we throw out our ignitions or anything like that, it'll deal even more damage. We got Elemental Coalescence, so defeating targets has the chance to create an elemental pickup matching your equipped super element. So this again works well with Refresh Threads, just giving us more energy. We have Shield Crush, so every time we have frost armor, our melee will recharge faster and deal increased damage. And while we're radiant or amplified, our grenade will recharge faster and deal increased damage. We'll basically always have frost armor, and we'll basically always have amplified and radiant as well. And last but not least, we have Frigid Glare. While frost armor is active, our stasis precision final blows will cause combatants to release a freezing burst. That about wraps it up for the build. Try it out and let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a good day.